Welcome to Heartbreaker, your love radio.
During the wedding preparations, Maisie had the unwavering support of her best friend, Allison. The two had been friends since college when they met in an interior design course. Since then, their lives had intertwined to the point where it was impossible to imagine one without the other. Allison was Maisie's main confidant, always present during the most difficult and happiest moments. The weekends Maisie and Ethan spent planning the wedding were equally shared with Allison. She helped her friend navigate the stress of the preparations, such as choosing the reception hall, tasting menus, and discussing every detail. "Maisie, are you sure you want these flowers for the centerpieces? I think peonies would add a more elegant touch," Allison suggested with a keen and critical eye. Maisie, a talented architect, used her creativity to design the invitations and decorate the newly acquired apartment. Allison, who also had good aesthetic taste, often offered her opinion and helped with the choices. "You have an incredible talent, Em. These invitations will enchant all the guests," Allison praised. While Maisie focused on the wedding details, Allison faced problems in her own relationship. She was in a complicated relationship with Tom, a resident doctor who barely had time for her due to the demands of his job. Allison found solace in helping Maisie, feeling useful and distracted from her own issues. "Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one investing in this relationship," Allison confided during one of their meetings. "I know how you feel, Allison. But maybe he's just going through a tough time at work. Try talking to him again," Maisie advised, trying to be optimistic. As the preparations progressed, Allison began to notice something strange in Ethan's behavior. He seemed distracted in some meetings and sometimes was absent without much explanation. One night, after a menu tasting, Allison pulled Maisie aside. "Em, I've noticed that Ethan has been a bit distant lately. Have you noticed anything different?" she asked hesitantly. "I think he's just stressed with work and the wedding preparations." "It's a lot to handle at the same time," Maisie replied, trying to divert her friend's concern. Allison, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. "If you need anything, I'm here, okay?" she said, hugging Maisie tightly. Her friend smiled, grateful for the constant support. The days turned into weeks and, although Maisie was radiant with the approaching big day, Allison continued to have doubts. She wondered if she should investigate further or let it go, fearing to worry Maisie without concrete evidence. One of those nights, Allison decided to talk to Tom about her suspicions. "Tom, do you think I'm being paranoid? I feel something is wrong with Ethan, but I don't want to alarm Maisie without concrete evidence," she said while they had coffee before bed. "I understand your concern, Allison. But sometimes we need to trust that people know what they're doing. If Ethan is hiding something, the truth will come out sooner or later," Tom replied, trying to calm her. Even with this conversation, Allison couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to do something. On impulse, she decided to go to the restaurant where Ethan worked to have a frank conversation with him. "Ethan, can I talk to you for a moment?" she asked, finding him in the restaurant's kitchen. "Sure, Allison. What's it about?" Ethan replied, a bit surprised by the unexpected visit. "I just wanted to know if everything is okay. You've been different lately, and I'm worried about Maisie. She's so excited about the wedding, but I can't help feeling something is wrong," Allison said, trying to gauge Ethan's reactions. Ethan forced a smile. "Everything's fine, Allison. I think it's just the stress of the preparations. There's a lot to organize, and I want everything to be perfect for Maisie," he replied, trying to reassure her. Allison wasn't completely convinced, but decided not to press further. "Okay, Ethan. Just know that I'm here to help with anything you need," she said, taking her leave. In the days that followed, Allison kept a close eye on Ethan without raising suspicion. She continued to support Maisie unconditionally, helping her choose the wedding dress, organize the guest list, and finalize all the details of the big day. "Maisie, this dress is perfect. You're going to be the most beautiful bride I've ever seen," exclaimed Allison, moved. "Thank you, Allison. I don't know what I would do without you," replied Maisie, hugging her friend. While helping Maisie, Allison also tried to resolve her own issues with Tom. They had several heartfelt conversations about their relationship, and Tom promised to make a greater effort to be present. "I know I've been failing you, Allison. But I want you to know that you are very important to me. I'll try to balance my time better," he promised. As time passed, the friendship between Maisie and Allison grew even stronger. They shared laughter, tears, and tense moments, always supporting each other. Even with her own doubts and worries, Allison never stopped being by Maisie's side, ready for any challenge that might arise. And so, as the big day approached, Allison continued to navigate the stress of the preparations, while dealing with her personal issues. There was an underlying tension that only a few could perceive. Despite his apparent happiness, Ethan carried a secret that could destroy everything he and Maisie were building. This secret was not unknown to his older brother, Jake, who had always been the protector of the family. Jake and Ethan had never had an easy relationship. Jake, the older and more traditional one, had always assumed the role of guardian of morality and responsibility within the family. Ethan, on the other hand, was the free spirit, the rebel who followed his own paths. When Ethan announced his engagement to Maisie, Jake was the first to raise an eyebrow. He knew that despite his brother's talent and charisma, Ethan had a history of infidelity and impulsive decisions. One night, after yet another heated argument about wedding preparations, Jake decided he could no longer stay silent. He was tired of seeing Ethan play with Maisie's future, a woman he had come to admire for her integrity and passion. Jake felt he had a moral obligation to intervene, even knowing it could cause an irreparable rift between the brothers. Jake went to Ethan's apartment. When he arrived, he found his brother sitting on the couch, reviewing the wedding menu plans. "Ethan, we need to talk," Jake said, entering without waiting for an invitation. Ethan looked up, surprised by the seriousness on Jake's face. "Sure, Jake. What is it now?" "Another lecture on how I should live my life." Jake took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "It's not a lecture, Ethan. It's an intervention. I know about you and Olivia." Ethan's face turned pale. He tried to hide it, but Jake's expression was relentless. "I don't know what you're talking about," Ethan said, trying to sound convincing. Jake shook his head, disheartened. "Don't underestimate my intelligence, Ethan. I know what you're doing behind Maisie's back. And it needs to stop." Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "You've always been the moralist of the family, haven't you? Always thinking you know what's best for everyone." Jake crossed his arms, keeping his gaze steady on his brother. "This time, it's not about me. It's about Maisie. She doesn't deserve this. If you truly love her, you need to be honest." Ethan abruptly stood up, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "You think you know everything, don't you? But you don't know what it's like to be in my shoes, Jake. You don't know what it's like to have such high expectations placed on you that you feel like you'll never live up to them." Jake took a step forward, trying to keep his calm. "Ethan, that's no excuse for cheating. We all have our struggles, but that doesn't justify hurting someone you love." Ethan turned his back, looking out the window, trying to find the words. He knew Jake was right, but admitting it was something he wasn't ready to do. "I don't know what to do," Ethan finally admitted, his voice breaking. Jake placed a hand on his brother's shoulder in a gesture of reconciliation. "Then listen to my advice. Be honest with Maisie. Tell her the truth before it's too late." Ethan brushed Jake's hand off, anger returning. "You don't understand anything. I'm not going to destroy what we have over one mistake." Jake sighed, feeling the frustration grow. "If you don't tell the truth, I'll have to. I can't stay silent while you deceive her." Ethan turned, his expression defiant. "If you do that, Jake, never speak to me again. Ever. Jake felt the weight of his brother's words, but knew he was doing the right thing. I hope you change your mind, Ethan. But if you don't, I'm ready to face the consequences. Jake left the apartment, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts. He knew that his decision to confront his brother could destroy their relationship, but the truth was more important. Maisie deserved to know the truth before making such a big commitment. Meanwhile, Ethan stood in the living room, reflecting on the conversation. He knew he was at a crossroads. On one side was the path of honesty, which could destroy his relationship with Maisie, but possibly save his integrity. On the other was the path of lies, which could maintain the facade of happiness but destroy his soul. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Jake's words echoed in his mind, and he knew he had to make a decision. He was torn between his desire to keep everything as it was and the growing sense of guilt and shame. The next day, Ethan tried to act as if nothing had happened. He threw himself into the wedding preparations, trying to ignore Jake's voice in his head. But the truth had a way of creeping in, and he knew he couldn't escape it forever. Meanwhile, Jake was also in a dilemma. He wanted to protect Maisie, but at the same time, he didn't want to be the one to destroy his brother's marriage. He spent days weighing the pros and cons, trying to find a solution that wouldn't cause so much pain. Finally, Jake decided that the only way to resolve the problem was to confront Ethan one last time. He arranged to meet his brother at a cafe, hoping that a face-to-face conversation could change Ethan's perspective. "Ethan, thanks for coming," Jake said when his brother arrived. "Let's get this over with, Jake." "What do you want?" Ethan responded, clearly irritated. Jake looked directly into his brother's eyes. "I want you to do the right thing. Tell Maisie the truth. Before it's too late." Ethan sighed, feeling the pressure increase. "I can't, Jake. I can't destroy everything over one mistake." Jake shook his head, trying to stay calm. "A mistake that keeps happening isn't just a mistake, Ethan. It's a choice. And every day you hide it, you're making that choice." Ethan looked at his brother, anger and despair mixed in his eyes. "I don't know if I can." Jake placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder in a gesture of solidarity. "You can. And if you need help, I'll be here. But don't let this destroy Maisie's life. She deserves the truth." Ethan remained silent, feeling the weight of Jake's words. He knew his brother was right, but admitting it was an internal battle he had yet to win. The conversation ended without a clear resolution, but something inside Ethan began to change. He knew he needed to face the truth, no matter how painful it was. And Jake, as much as he wanted to protect his brother, knew that the truth was the only path to redemption. On the eve of the wedding, Maisie was caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The preparations had been intense, but she felt happy and excited about the big day. However, her peace was abruptly shattered when she received an unexpected message from Olivia, a former colleague of Ethan's. The message contained a disturbing amount of evidence, photos and audio recordings that proved Ethan's infidelity. Maisie was in shock. She reread the messages several times, hoping that somehow she was mistaken. But the evidence was undeniable. The photos showed Ethan in intimate situations with Olivia, and the audio recordings revealed compromising conversations. Feeling betrayed and devastated, Maisie couldn't hold back her tears. "Allison, you need to come here now," Maisie said, her voice trembling on the phone. Allison, always the loyal friend, didn't hesitate. "I'm on my way, Maisie. Hold on." When Allison arrived, she found Maisie crumpled on the couch, surrounded by the evidence of Ethan's betrayal. Maisie's face was pale, and her eyes, swollen from crying, reflected a mix of pain and disbelief. "Maisie, my God, what happened?" Allison asked, already sensing something very serious had occurred. Maisie handed her phone with the messages to Allison. "Read it." "It's all there," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Allison read the messages, her face shifting between shock and anger. That bastard. How could he do this to you? Maisie shook her head, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to return. I don't know, Allison. I don't know how I didn't see it. How was I so blind? Allison sat next to Maisie and held her hand. You're not blind, Maisie. You trusted him. This isn't your fault. The night dragged on as Maisie and Allison discussed what to do. Maisie mentally revisited every detail of the past few months, trying to find signs she might have missed. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. She felt not only betrayed by Ethan, but also by her own naivety and trust. Allison, what do I do now? Maisie asked, her voice breaking. Allison took a deep breath. First, you need to calm down. Let's think clearly. You have a few options. You can confront him now, cancel the wedding, or go through with a plan. Maisie looked at Allison, surprised. Go through with a plan. Allison nodded. Yes. You can use the wedding to expose the truth. Let everyone know what he did. The idea seemed radical, but it started to make sense to Maisie. She spent the rest of the night rehearsing what she would say, preparing herself for the moment she would reveal the truth to everyone. Maisie spent a tumultuous night, full of tears and reflections, after discovering Ethan's betrayal. Olivia's messages left no doubt. Ethan had been having an affair for months, while she, naive, planned a future with him. The pain of the betrayal was immense, but amidst the tears and despair, an idea began to form in her mind. Maisie decided to go ahead with the wedding, but not in the conventional way. On the morning of the big day, Maisie looked at herself in the mirror, adjusting the veil on her immaculate hairstyle. The pain was still palpable, but there was a new determination in her eyes. Allison, her best friend, entered the room, observing her with concern. Maisie, are you sure about this? It's not too late to cancel everything. We can come up with some excuse, say you got sick or something, suggested Allison, her voice full of worry. Maisie took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I've thought a lot about this, Allison. I can't just cancel. He needs to know that I know. Everyone needs to know who he really is. This wedding is happening, but not the way he imagines. Allison shook her head, hesitant. I understand your pain, but doing this so publicly. Are you ready to deal with the consequences? Maisie nodded, her voice firm. I am. He humiliated me, betrayed me, and did it while I was preparing our life together. He will face the consequences of his actions, and I will move on, but not before exposing the truth. Meanwhile, Ethan was in another room, adjusting his tie in front of the mirror, unaware of what was to come. His friends laughed and made jokes, believing it would be the happiest day of their friend's life. Ethan, for a moment, thought of Olivia, but pushed the thought aside. Today was about Maisie and him. Or at least, that's what he thought. The ceremony was set for 4 p.m., and the church was beautifully decorated with white flowers and golden details. Guests began to arrive, chatting excitedly and taking photos. The atmosphere was festive, with no one suspecting the storm about to unfold. Maisie arrived in an elegant car, accompanied by her father. He looked at her with pride, not noticing the hidden tension on his daughter's face. You look beautiful, my dear. The day we've been waiting for has finally arrived. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Yes, Dad. Everything is ready. The murmur of conversations was interrupted when the music began to play, signaling the start of the event. Ethan, standing at the altar, displayed a confident smile, unaware of what was about to happen. All eyes turned to the back of the church as Maisie entered, radiant in her wedding dress, but with an expression that mixed determination and sadness. Maisie walked to the altar, where Ethan waited. Upon reaching his side, she took a deep breath and turned to the guests. The silence was almost palpable. Instead of starting the traditional vows, Maisie held a small bundle of papers in her trembling hands. "Before we begin, I have something important to share with all of you," Maisie said, her voice firm but laden with emotion. Ethan frowned, confused, as the guests exchanged curious glances. Allison and Jake, aware of what was coming, braced themselves for the impact. Maisie began to read the messages exchanged between Ethan and Olivia, each word feeling like a knife to the hearts of everyone present. "Dear Ethan," Maisie began, "I never imagined I would be here, on this day, doing this. But the truth needs to be told." She read aloud one of Ethan's messages to Olivia. "I can't wait to see you tonight. Maisie will never find out." "Do you have any idea what you're doing, Maisie?" Ethan whispered, trying to stay calm. "I know exactly what I'm doing, Ethan," Maisie replied, tears in her eyes but unwavering. "I'm showing everyone who you really are." She continued reading more messages and playing audio recordings, while distributing photos to the guests. The evidence was irrefutable. The commotion grew, and collective outrage filled the ceremony. Allison and Jake tried to calm the situation, but the tension was palpable. "Maisie, please stop this," Ethan pleaded, trying to reach for her hand. "We can talk about this privately." "No, Ethan," Maisie said, pulling away. "You betrayed me, and everyone here needs to know." The indignation was widespread. Ethan's words were drowned out by the murmurs and shouts of the guests, who felt betrayed by being witnesses to a farce. Maisie, despite the visible pain on her face, stood firm. "I loved you, Ethan," Maisie continued, now addressing everyone present. "But love requires honesty and respect. And you violated both." The confusion in the church escalated. Some guests tried to leave, while others remained in shock. The ceremony, which should have been a symbol of unity and happiness, turned into a stage of disillusionment and betrayal. Jake, visibly shaken, approached his brother. "I warned you, Ethan," he said, his voice filled with sadness and disappointment. "I warned you this would end badly." Ethan, stunned and speechless, looked around, trying to comprehend the magnitude of the damage he had caused. He attempted to defend himself, but his words were useless against the evidence presented. "Please, everyone," Allison said, trying to calm the crowd. "Let's give Maisie a moment to finish." Maisie, with teary eyes, looked at Allison with gratitude. "Thank you, Allison," she said. "And thank you all for listening. I'm sorry for exposing this so publicly and painfully, but it was necessary." She looked at Ethan once more, with a mixture of sadness and determination. "Ethan, I hope one day you understand what you did and learn from it. But I can't continue with you." The church fell into absolute silence. The whispers of disbelief and shock among the guests were audible. Ethan's mother, pale as a ghost, fainted in the pew. Maisie's father, furious, advanced towards Ethan but was restrained by friends and family. The ceremony, which was supposed to be a day of celebration, ended in disillusionment. Ethan was led out of the church by friends and family, leaving Maisie to stand firm in the face of her pain, ready to move forward. Allison, always by Maisie's side, stepped up to the altar and whispered, "You did what you had to do. I'm here with you." Maisie nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude for her friend's unwavering support. She knew she needed to say something more, something that would close this chapter of her life with the dignity and clarity she deserved. Allison held Maisie's hand firmly. "Let's go home. You need some time for yourself." Maisie nodded, grateful. "Yes, I think that's the best thing to do right now." As they headed to the car, Maisie reflected on what had happened. Ethan's betrayal not only destroyed her plans for the future, but also shook her confidence and view of love. However, she knew that this experience, as painful as it was, would teach her valuable lessons. Upon arriving at the apartment, Allison made a cup of tea for Maisie and helped her settle on the couch. "You were incredibly brave today," Allison said, handing the cup to Maisie. "Not everyone would have the strength to do what you did." Maisie gave a weak smile. "I don't feel brave right now. I feel devastated and lost. But I knew I had to do it. I couldn't start a life with someone who doesn't respect me." Allison sat next to Maisie and held her hand. "And you did the right thing. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it's necessary for us to move forward and build something better." Maisie nodded slowly, feeling the weight of Allison's words. "You're right. I need time to process all this, but I know I'll get through it." In the following days, Maisie withdrew from the world, seeking time for herself. She revisited every detail of the past months, trying to understand how she missed the signs of Ethan's betrayal. She felt betrayed not only by him but also by her own naivety. Allison continued to stay by her side, always there to offer support and comfort. "You will come out stronger from this experience," she often said. "And you will find someone who truly deserves you." Maisie began to focus on her personal and professional goals. She resumed projects she had set aside, like the renovation of an old loft, and rediscovered hobbies that brought her joy. She knew the road to recovery would be long, but she was determined to move forward. Meanwhile, Ethan faced the consequences of his actions. His betrayal not only destroyed his relationship with Maisie, but also shook his professional life. The restaurant where he worked began to lose customers due to the scandal, and he found himself having to leave town in search of a new beginning. He tried to regain the trust of his family and friends, but met with resistance and distrust. Jake, his older brother, was particularly disappointed. "I warned you, Ethan," he said during a tense conversation. "The truth always comes out. You need to change your life and reevaluate your priorities." Ethan knew Jake was right. He needed to do some deep introspection and understand what he truly wanted for the future. His actions had caused pain to many people, and he knew he had to work hard to regain the trust and respect of those he had hurt. Over time, Maisie began to feel stronger and more confident. She knew she had made the right decision by exposing Ethan's betrayal and moving on with her life. The painful experience taught her the importance of honesty and respect in any relationship. One sunny afternoon, while walking in the park, Maisie met Lucas, a talented photographer who had also recently experienced betrayal. They started talking and discovered they shared many stories and dreams. Over time, a new love story began to unfold, this time based on trust and mutual respect. Maisie, cautious, was reluctant to fully open up, but she found in Lucas a patient and understanding partner. He supported her unconditionally and encouraged her to pursue her dreams. Meanwhile, Olivia, Ethan's former colleague, decided to publicly expose his numerous betrayals and manipulations. She published an article detailing her experiences and those of other women involved with Ethan, causing a media uproar. Ethan, whose reputation was already tarnished, saw his life completely fall apart. Maisie, on the other hand, was approached by many people who thanked her for her courage in exposing the truth. She became a symbol of strength and resilience and received an offer to publish a book about her experience, bringing her recognition and professional success. With the support of Allison, Lucas, and new friends she made along the way, Maisie began to rebuild her life. She knew the future held many surprises and was ready to face each challenge with courage and determination. The most important lesson she learned was that even in the most painful situations, there is always an opportunity to start over and find true happiness. On a particularly sunny day, Maisie received an unexpected call. It was her former college professor, inviting her to participate in an urban revitalization project. "I know you're going through a tough time, Maisie, but I believe this project could be an excellent opportunity for you to rediscover yourself and showcase your talent," said the professor. Maisie accepted the invitation with enthusiasm. Working on a large-scale project excited her and made her feel like she was contributing to something bigger. She dedicated herself intensely, and her work began to be recognized by the architectural community. During a team meeting, one of her colleagues commented, "Maisie, your ideas are brilliant. I don't know how we managed to move this project forward without your vision." She thanked him humbly, but inside she felt proud of her achievements. Each compliment was a confirmation that she was on the right path. As the months passed, Maisie made new friends and strengthened her bond with Allison. They became practically inseparable, sharing laughs, confidences, and future plans. One night over wine and movies, Allison asked, "Have you ever thought about opening your own architecture firm? You have plenty of talent and you've already proven that." Maisie smiled, thoughtful. "It's an idea that's always crossed my mind, but I never had the courage to pursue it. Maybe now is the right time." 6 months after the fateful wedding, Maisie opened her architecture firm. The opening was a success, with friends, colleagues, and new clients praising her work and dedication. Allison, of course, was there, proud and emotional. "I told you you could do it," she exclaimed, hugging Maisie tightly. Over time, the connection between Maisie and Lucas grew stronger. They began meeting regularly, whether for coffee, exploring art exhibitions, or simply walking through the park. Each meeting was an opportunity for them to get to know each other better and deepen their blossoming relationship. One sunny autumn afternoon, Maisie and Lucas met at a charming cafe near the gallery where they first met. They chose an outdoor table, surrounded by trees whose leaves were beginning to change color, creating a picturesque scene. "I've been thinking a lot about us," Lucas said, after taking a sip of his coffee. "I think we're building something special, something based on trust and respect. And that's something I deeply value." Maisie, feeling a wave of emotion, held his hand. "I feel that too, Lucas. But, to be honest, I'm still scared. Scared of getting hurt again, of trusting and being betrayed." Lucas gently squeezed her hand, his eyes full of understanding. "I understand, Maisie. And I'm not here to rush anything. I want you to know that I'm willing to wait, to walk beside you, respecting your time and space." Lucas's words deeply touched Maisie. For the first time in months, she felt she could truly allow herself to love again, without the constant fear of being hurt. Lucas's patience and understanding were a balm for her wounded soul. The months went by, and Maisie and Lucas continued to build their relationship. They shared dreams and aspirations, discovering they both had a passion for travel and adventure. They decided to plan a trip together, an escape to a small village on the Italian coast, where they could explore and photograph the natural beauty of the place. During one of these trips, on a secluded beach at sunset, Lucas turned to Maisie and said, "You know, I never imagined I could find someone so special again. You've brought light into my life, Maisie, and I'm eternally grateful for that." Maisie, her eyes shining with emotion, replied, "You've also brought joy and hope into my life, Lucas. Thank you for being patient and for showing me that true love is still possible." They embraced, feeling the sea breeze around them, and in that moment, Maisie realized she had found in Lucas not just a new love, but a partner who valued and respected her.